you guys are starting to get an idea of how these pieces might hybridize to create new forms. Okay, so one of the things that I did after I created this one, and you can see that the camera can see it, it's got parallel folds. But this sort of inside piece kind of juts forward, is I decided to try and create another one where it didn't jut forward so far, and it juts back a little bit. So you can see the difference between these two, right? Hopefully you can start to understand how these become a marriage of the forms that you see in this one with the function that you see in form F. Okay? So now we're going to change tracks real quick, and we're going to move towards just learning how we might stabilize these things so that they stop moving. And we're going to be using just a simple concept called shear walls. All right? So you guys are all going to be making kind of a similar form the first time through. So I'm just going to give you guys some basic dimensions. So I think what we'll do is we'll make a strip that is going to be, let's say it's 3 inches wide, okay? And we'll make it about 12 inches long, okay? So there is a strip 3 inches wide, 2 inches long. All right? And that's an approximation. I'll draw it with this so that the darn camera can pick that darn thing up. Okay, so what I want to do with that strip is I want to basically create type A, which is just, it's got 3 levels with 2 walls. One of them folds in, one of them folds out. So I'm just going to kind of approximate, I'm going to make kind of a middle part. That's going to be about 3 inches. Okay? So, and then I'm going to make a wall on either side of that 3-inch center part that's 1 inch. Okay? So there's that. I'll use my square to okay, so I'm going to note this on here. This became 3 inches. This became 1 inch. This became 1 inch. And that's what? 3, 4, 5 from 12 leaves 7, correct? So that's like, so I got about 3.5 here, 3.5 and 3.5. And it's 3 inches wide. Okay? So all we need to do is kind of cut that. The reason that I'm having you do this is because I want to show you how to create shear walls, right, that create resistance to the flexing of these things and keep the levels exactly at the right height. Okay? So I'm going to cut this out with this. All right, so there is my sort of giant version of A, okay? And I want to do it the same way. So this one, if you recall, we creased this one on the back side and this one on the front side. So I'm going to kind of take these lines and bring them to the back. Okay. So we'll crease these two on the back side. Oops. Moved on me, sorry. All right, so again, if it's like, if I had the A right here, this would fold forward, okay? And then it would fold back the other direction, so these I crease on this side. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to install a shear panel right inside of each of these. All right, now I want you guys to understand that when this thing flexes, right, each of those walls is acting like a hinge. In other words, things can move back and forth. So if we're going to install a wall that's going to stop that motion and keep things exactly level, they have to go perpendicular to the hinge. Okay? Now in order to slant the walls, we are going to make the shear walls so that they're 3/4 of an inch tall. All right? So remember, these are 1 inch. So the part that we're going to put inside of it's going to be 3/4 of an inch tall. So I'm going to measure here 3/4 of an inch and cut a strip out. Oops. So it's a little smaller than 1 inch. All right, here's my strip. Okay, so what I need now is going to be just a short piece that's smaller than the floor level that I can put in the side here. So I'm going to just cut a piece that's about, I don't know, 2 inches long or so. I'm going to do 2 pieces like that. Okay, so I'm going to start down on the ground floor, and I'm just going to put the wall kind of in the middle there and kind of glue it in place. Notice that I'm not putting it right up against this wall. Notice that it's separated right there. Okay, I didn't put it right up against here. And I did that on purpose because I need the flexibility to be able to hinge this thing to where it's flat. All right, so now when I bring this thing over and I hinge it like that, you guys can see where there's no light in between any of the surfaces in there. Notice what happens if I tilt it this way. See how you can see light between there? So I'm going to tilt it until it's flat. Now you can see why I needed to leave that gap there. If it didn't work, what I could do is after I installed it, I could just take my knife and sort of notch it off like that to give me more space. All right? But the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of glue these two together. So I'm going to, I'll show you how I would do this. I'm going to put a mark right where the glue is supposed to go. I just use my pencil. And then I'm going to put the glue on here. And I'm going to put this stuff on the other piece. And then I'll put them together within a second or two. Now, oops, there it went. Maybe what I need to do is put a little bit more of that in there. Now you can see, right, make sure the camera can see that the floors are exactly level. And since that shear wall inside is 3/4 of an inch instead of an inch, we get that nice slant on the side here. Okay? So do the same thing up above. And here it is going to hit, so I do need to trim it back. There we go. A little bit of glue here. Two together and drop some accelerant in the middle. And there is my form. You can see that it's holding the floor levels exactly parallel to each other because those strips are parallel, right? You can see that it's angling the walls. Now, one of the things that I want you guys to understand, because students tend to have a kind of a dilemma with this. I'm going to break this real quick and tear this wall off. What happens if I don't put my shear wall perpendicular to the hinge? What happens if I put it this way?
Might collapse.
Well, for starters, it's not going to keep your levels parallel because it could tilt. And the other thing is that once you glue it, if you push hard enough, it's going to tilt. Right? If it's going this direction, it won't. If it's going perpendicular, right, to the hinge, it won't. It'll hold it in place. But if you try and put it perpendicular to it, right, I'm sorry, if you try and put it parallel to the hinge, it's not going to work.
12 minutes.
Okay? So what I want you guys to do right now is I want you guys to build this contraption. And I'm only going to give you guys about 10 minutes to do this. Okay? Go ahead and stop the video.